Hello. At this stage, you've probably forgotten my name, but you'll probably remember that Michael Jackson is my twin. Uh, this brief video, I'd like to include for you a short summary of the workshop that we carried out because it was quite difficult for people to take notes, and maybe there'll be some parts that you can't remember. So I hope you enjoy this. The aim of the workshop was to provide the group with some tools and methodology to reduce the effects of apathy and to build some resilience in order to implement desired changes. We had several objectives: building trust in the group, explaining concepts like resilience and apathy, introducing such tools as a SWOT analysis, outcome planning template, using a logic model, concentrating on a strengths based approach, and making the workshop enjoyable, which I hope it was for everybody. We started with a contract which covered respect, participation, confidentiality, and just the logistics of timing for the sessions. We began to look at human nature and to see how intricate and how invaluable we are as humans. You'll probably all remember that we produce enough saliva in our lifetime to fill 2 swimming pools, but that's not the bit I want you to remember. I want you to remember that if our brain was a computer, it could perform 38 trillion operations a second. It's 500 times faster than the world's fastest supercomputer. And this is the one that we really want to use to try and beat apathy and to build on our strengths. We talked about life being 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And one of the things that was really important here was that it's our reaction to events that will determine how we cope with them, rather than necessarily the events themselves. We wanted to look at positive changes that we could make and to look at the notion that we're in charge of ourselves, we're in charge of how we feel, and we can choose happiness. We did an exercise using butterflies and tulips, and I'd just like to explain it to you. The exercise was to draw a picture of a time in your life when you were happy. And it's because happy memories are good for us, as our brain produces chemicals that make us feel good about life. The task for you is, when you wake each morning, decide you will be in good humour and try to have a good day. The decision can be yours. It won't always go your way, but if you can start the day in good humour, it's a good start to make. We talked about the importance of labels and how they can affect us very much as humans. We looked at the story of Miriam, the Syrian woman, who, because of her label as a Syrian woman, was subjected to war, possibility of rape, of death, of persecution, of a lack of freedom. When she came to Ireland as an asylum seeker, the label changed, but it still had a lot of implications in her life. She's not allowed to work, she's not allowed to cook for her children, she's dependent, and she has a very unsure future. One of the key differences between many of us and Miriam is that Miriam had no choice in relation to the labels. We do have choices, and one of the key ways to begin to defeat apathy is to make the right choices. We then looked at resilience, and it's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. It means bouncing back from difficult experiences. You don't have to have gone through huge trauma to have developed resilience. Research has shown that resilience is ordinary, not extraordinary, and people commonly demonstrate resilience. Resilience is not a trait that people have or do not have. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed in anyone. We teach resilience to our children. How many of you remember the funeral for the goldfish in the Galty cheese box? To teach children in a way about death and about how life can change, and to help them to be able to cope with more serious death situations when they arise in a family, as they naturally do. We then did an exercise which involved listening to a piece of music, thinking about the resilience we have ourselves, and it was called a mandala exercise. Here's an explanation of how to use it. It's good sometimes just to listen to some music and to just color in your mandala, which really is a repetitive pattern. When we're planning a change, we sometimes think too hard about the change, and we can become very frustrated that the answers won't come immediately. It's very useful to let your brain relax by listening to music or a repetitive exercise like coloring a mandala. Your brain will continue to work in the background and will think about the change, and the answer will come eventually. So we've talked about apathy. What exactly is apathy anyway? In a sense, it's something like falling in love. You can describe it all you want, but until you've experienced it, you can only guess at what it feels like. Paradoxically, what makes the feeling of apathy unique is that it's essentially the feeling of not feeling. In a sense, it's something like a computer virus. It can sneak in and open itself. It uses you to beat yourself. We looked at some ways that maybe we could break the apathy. There are many practical things you can do, but you won't be able to do any of them unless you manage to change your mindset. Regardless of what initially caused you to feel so unmotivated, it's your present day outlook on it that now keeps you stuck. Your immediate task then is to alter this outlook. In short, you're much better off focusing on how to fix what's inside your head rather than what lies outside it. Don't kid yourself. There's no question, but you'll need to force yourself. Yeah, really force yourself to uproot what's already taken residence deep inside you. So, are you ready to change? In our workshop, we did an exercise of crossing our legs, then uncrossing them and doing it the opposite way, and the very same with our hands. It's really to show us that change can be uncomfortable at first, but if we practice it, it can become a routine. So one of the things you have to do is to develop a knowledge of where your apathy is coming from and to contest its underlying assumptions. Since apathy is fundamentally about attitude, begin to look at yourself and your history, but from a different perspective. When you look at the picture on the slide here, do you see a young woman or an old woman or both? So it's really about changing the perspective to see, does it give you a different view? In our workshop, I ask people to write down one thing that irritates them. That can be somebody leaving the cap off the toothpaste. It can be the guy at the traffic lights who's picking his nose while he's waiting for the lights to change. And then just forget about it. Now for the difficult one, though. Write down one thing that you feel you failed at. It might be an exam, it might be a job interview that you weren't successful at, it might be just one of the simple things during the day. But sometimes we beat ourselves up an awful lot about things that we consider to be failures. They're just things that happened. And what we need to do really is take a different perspective and stop beating ourselves up about it. We need to forgive ourselves for it and move on. The next step is a transition from passivity to problem solving. In the workshop, we wrote down one thing that we'd like to change. And then we began to look at what does success look like? If your change is 100% successful, it means how will you feel? What impact on my life will that have? We looked at a planning-based system called outcome-based planning. The output is the change that you'd like to implement. The outcome is what happens as a result of that change. In making our plans, if plan A doesn't work, move to plan B, move to plan C. But in effect, all of them must be trying to reach the same outcome. We then looked at a tool called a SWOT analysis, which asked us to look at our strengths, an example was resilience, our weaknesses, an example could be a bad habit that we have, an opportunity that we have, an example could be being part of a network of people who will support you, and a threat, the threat of apathy. We wanted to look at a strengths-based approach. And in using our strengths, we looked at 4 areas to try and achieve our outcomes. Those areas were choice, create something, consider, and celebrate. And we'll look in the next slide in a little more detail on that. Choice. You can make choices about what you do and how you feel, so you should choose wisely. Create. You have the ability to be creative. Try to do something new. Explore new ways of solving a problem. Consider. Give yourself time for some reflection. Just a short time will do. Think about successes that you've had. Celebrate. Treat yourself. Be kind to yourself. You would do it for others, so why not for yourself? We introduced the notion of putting coins that you would normally not miss if you lost them into a jar, and at the end of a period of time, buying something for yourself. It could be a flower, it could be a book, it could be a cup of coffee, but it's a way of celebrating your success. Why should you do it? Well, the outcome is because you're worth it. We used a sample plan that could be used, and we didn't have a lot of time to go into detail on this. So on the next slide, I'd like to present you with a template of a possible plan that you could use. In the first column, in column A, you would write in the change that you want to make. An example here could be beating apathy. In column B, you'd write in the outcome. What does 100% success look like if you manage to make the change? In the example, I've said that it looks like I will lose that feeling of helplessness and be in control. The next step is the impact in column C. Column C asks, what impact will this change have on my life? And the example here is that my life and that of those around me will be happier. Column D asks you to list some of the strengths that you have that you'll use in trying to implement this change. As an example, the ones I've listed here can be my resilience, the power to choose, my creativity. It's also important that we focus on weaknesses, but as I said earlier, it's important not to beat ourselves up about it. So in column E, you should write just one weakness that you'd like to work on. Again, the example I used here was a weakness maybe of putting things off until the last minute. In the next three columns, there's room for a daily plan, a weekly plan, a monthly plan. Again, examples could be in a daily plan, choose every day to feel good. Go for a short walk. Put your coins in the plastic cup. Smile. A weekly plan could be cook yourself a nice meal. Reflect on some success you've had. Watch a film. Listen to some nice music. A monthly plan could be do something new, be creative, try learn something. Reward yourself with a gift. Read a book. Go for coffee with a friend. It's up to you what plans you choose and what time scale you want to choose for those plans. But it's really important that you monitor your success. And in the last column, it allows you to look at the achievements that you've had in relation to your plan. And it's a good idea to highlight the ones that you have achieved, as it will show you that you're being more successful as you move along in beating apathy. Again, of course, you can use this plan in relation to your home life, your work schedule, your leisure time, whichever you choose. Okay, we're nearly there. Really, to sum up, the importance of the workshop was saying that you were born human, which gave you really innate strengths. People labelled you, and these labels had an effect, be it positive or negative, and still continue to. But how you react to those labels is important for you. It's important that you choose your own label. It's important for you as well to release your inner child. Your brain has stored up an awful lot of strengths that you've had through your lifetime, and these will really help you to beat something like apathy. And lastly, it's important that you raise yourselves up.